MIAA Monday back with Commissioner Mike Racy. It's Tuesday, I know, but we had a lot of stuff going on yesterday. Kind of the first day to kind of get things wrapped up maybe after the MIAA tournament for you guys yesterday, kind of tearing things down, moving back over to the offices. But what a tournament it was. The women's, men's, great championship games. It's overall good to be back at Municipal Auditorium.
I think so too, Chris. And yeah, thanks for not scheduling something yesterday. I'm not sure that there was. I'm not sure it was a good day to talk to the commissioner. My brain was fried, but we had a great week. It was a great tournament. 18 games, crowned a men's champ, a women's champ. I think the seeding from the regular season pretty much held to form. A couple of upsets. Certainly Washburn being there and not Central Oklahoma. Surprised a few. Washburn's playing great basketball at the end of the year, but I thought we had two really outstanding, close, competitive championship games. The Missouri Southern and the Hayes game. It turned out to be our lowest scoring championship game in the history of the tournament. But a lot of times when two teams like Hayes and Missouri Southern that have offensive weapons that are, seeing each other for the maybe the third time during the year, they know how to defend. They know how to take what the other team wants to do away. And we just had really a great defensive battle and a chess match that came down to the end on the women's side. And then Northwest Washburn, the last 5 years, those teams hooking up in big games to decide the regular season or the conference championship at the tournament. We had another epic game. Probably the four best guards in all of Division II basketball were on the court for that game, and Trevor had a career game, tournament MVP, and just a great college basketball atmosphere on Sunday down at Municipal Auditorium.
I want to go back to the women's game real quick before we get into the men's championship. But Missouri Southern kind of getting into the championship game. They've had a really good year. I think they surprised some people this year with just how good they were. But the fan base that they brought, because, we talk about Washburn, Northwest fan bases that we see. 4-day state trials really well. But good to see Missouri Southern have a really good fan base that there for a really good women's team that, just came up a little bit short there at the end of their championship game too.
Yeah, usually when you see green in downtown Kansas City around MIAA tournament time, it's usually Northwest fans. But Joplin traveled great. They've, the women's team, they've been on an unbelievable win streak in the conference. I think excitement in Joplin around this team has really picked up during the year, and I was excited that we had a lot of folks from Joplin that came to support Missouri Southern really every day of the tournament. This was a year, Chris, we alternate, but this was a year that our women's games were in the afternoon and the men's games were in the evening session. That'll be reversed next year, but we had some really nice crowds in the afternoon during the week for our women's bracket, and Missouri Southern was a big part of that. They did have a great following, and they're an exciting team. They've got some people that can score from different places on the court. Lacey Stokes, our freshman of the year and our player of the year in the conference. She's electric. Quick, probably not a more fierce competitor on the court, wills her way to points inside, scrappy with rebounds, great passer, outstanding shot from outside, and just probably one of the most exciting women's basketball players in the conference this year. And people that came down to see her certainly got their money's worth.
You look at, both games and actually the whole tournament for that matter. How do you gauge the success of this tournament? Maybe not on the court with the play, but just the overall tournament, because this was the first time back in 2 years at Municipal. It wasn't at a campus site. How do you kind of gauge the success of, like you talked about, like good attendance during the week for the afternoon games? And what do you kind of take away from all of it?
Well, as commissioner and working with a talented staff, and then we have a tournament committee, Chris, that you had a chance to interact with some this week at Municipal. We have a tournament committee made up of a representative from every one of our schools, and just a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So I really measure the success of the tournament by the things that we plan for and how we execute. And I'd give this tournament probably an A+, probably the best of the 6 tournaments that I've had a chance to run and serve as commissioner. Just the way things work, the way that we worked with the city, the way that we worked with the facility, building management, the way our tournament committee worked together, the way that staff communicated and worked together throughout the tournament. And those are a lot of things that people sitting in the stands don't see. But I thought our execution and performance in managing and running the tournament was the best we've done. And so that's my personal satisfaction, that I take away from an event is how well did we organize? How well did we prepare? How well did we anticipate? How well did we communicate and work through issues and problems during the tournament? And I thought we've never done better. Now, the other measurements on, how many people tuned into the network to watch the games, how many people, the attendance, revenue versus expenses, the evaluation, post-tournament evaluation of our officiating, how well we prepared our teams in this environment to go be successful in the NCAA tournament. Those were a bunch of measurements or metrics that we'll look at the next couple of weeks. But just the day or two after the event, it's really my evaluation is really how we did in the execution of the event.
You could have just said the overhead shot from the very ceiling of Municipal, and that would have been good enough for me. Like, that was an awesome shot. And then I heard how they got up there, and you got to pay me enough money to do that. I'm sorry. I don't like heights.
Yeah. People haven't seen those. They're out on our my Twitter feed, the conference office's Twitter feed. They've been reposted a number of places, and there's not only just the photos, but actually some video from there on a couple of sequences, I think, in both the men's and the women's games. So yeah, there are some awesome pictures. I told the guy doing some of those that they remind me of some of the cool Sports Illustrated pictures.
Yes.
When I was a kid, that I just stare at for an hour trying to look at all of the people and where people are. And it's one of those pictures that you can really stare at for a while and really take it all in.
It was so clear of a picture. I zoomed in, found myself, and I think I was sitting on my phone. So that's great. I'm sure I was working, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Breaking news.
Exactly. There had to be some reason I was just sitting on my phone, but
yeah.
Oh, it was a fantastic pictures, fantastic weekend for basketball. I was happy to be down there. I got to be down there 3 days this week. We had a lot of high school going on, so a very busy time of the year. But now let's talk about everything, the topic on everybody's mind across the MIAA Division II. The regional tournaments get set Friday and Saturday. Women's side of things got 4 teams in. Men's side of thing got 3 teams in. Just overall thoughts from you, I guess, on both the MIAA representation and the women's and men's side of things.
Well, first of all, we're in a really tough region. And as people know that have followed Division II athletics, Division II is set up in a regional format. So unlike Division I, where they try to have a little bit of parity in the bracket from region to region and send teams on long trips. Division II doesn't do that. So we know going into the year that, we're going to be, for both men's and women's basketball, we're with the Northern Sun Conference and the Great American Conference. And, there's when you look at the 8 regions in NCAA Division II, there's not a region that compares with the competitiveness of those 3 leagues in men's and women's basketball. So, I think we'll take it. 4 teams on the women's side, 3 on the men's. We probably deserve 1 or 2 more on the women's side, and we probably deserve 1 or 2 more on the men's side. When you look at the quality of basketball in our conference, the quality of our coaches, the outstanding student athletes that we have. I looked at a couple of things, just some different rating indexes yesterday, Chris, and one that I think a lot of Division II commissioners pay attention to is the Ken Massey ratings. He does rating indexes for all 3 divisions, and in Division II in men's basketball, he has us rated at the 2 or 3 conference behind the Northern Sun, and 5 MIAA schools in the top 21 in his national rating. Emporia State is in there at 21. I think he has Northwest Missouri State going into the tournament as the second best team in his index. On the women's side, we have 6 teams in the top 25, and obviously rated as the top Division II women's basketball conference by the Massey Ratings Index, and he's got Fort Hays State as the top program in the country going into the regional tournament. So, when you're in a conference that has 5 or 6 of the best men's programs and 5 or 6 of the best women's programs, at least the top 25 in the country, but you're sharing a region that has automatic qualifiers for 2 different conferences, and then however many at-larges they bring to the table, it's very competitive. But I feel good. I look at the women's bracket, Chris, and if all 4 of our women's teams win their first round games, the quarterfinal games at the regional tournament later this week, we'll have 4 MIAA schools in the semifinals for the NCAA regional tournament. Now, that would be a great day for MIAA and MIAA women's basketball. So it's going to be a fun week this weekend as both the men's and women's tournaments kick off. Hayes is hosting on the women's side, and then the men's teams travel up to Augustana in South Dakota is the host for the men's regional.
I tweeted it out, and I saw you kind of had some tweets out there too, and a lot of people did. We all know kind of Division II is kind of, the regionals are based kind of on, money plays a big part in how the region is set up. Do you see it ever changing from this format? I know we talked about this in football too, of it has a lot to do with travel and expenses that come into this, but do you see this as kind of the model that's here to stay, or is there a chance that leagues like the MIAA can kind of say, hey, and you yourself say, hey, we need to push for something different too?
Well, I think the concept of regionalization is probably here to stay. It's probably a very foundational element of our division, and the fiscally responsible, financially prudent way that we operate intercollegiate athletics within the university's academic budget. And we are fully, in Division II, athletics is fully integrated with the higher education mission. So part of that is being fiscally responsible, and part of that means, managing travel expenses. But we can do it better, Chris. And this is one of the things I tweeted out yesterday. Historically, Division II has tried to follow Division I and say, hey, these great, exciting postseason conference tournaments should be what we use to determine our automatic qualifiers. And I don't think that's a good idea anymore. It may have been a good idea when when the division was 200 or 250 schools, and that we were playing fewer games, fewer regular season games. But now I think we need a system that really rewards the regular season and the volume of work that teams achieve through their regular season performance. So, my solution on a more improved Division II regional format would be to use the AQs for your conference regular season champion, and that's who gets the automatic qualifier. So our champion, the Northern Suns regular season champion, the Great American Conference's regular season champion, those are the teams that should be getting the AQ. And then your postseason conference tournament is really used to sort out who these at-large teams should be, and what the seeding should be in the tournament. And we don't need a team with a record of 14-16 in the NCAA Division II playoffs. If they get hot at the end of the year and win a conference tournament, great. They get a conference tournament championship trophy, good 4 or 5 days of basketball. Now you're staying at home and you can celebrate your conference trophy, but you don't belong in the NCAA regional tournament. That should be for the conference regular season champs and the deserving at-large teams, as demonstrated by the regular season and their tournament performance. So, I feel strongly that is a change we need to make in Division II, reward our conference regular season champions, and use the conference tournament to make decisions about who the at-large teams are.
I'll play devil's advocate here for a second with that one. What do you do when there's co-conference champions? I know this year's example for MIAA. Well, I guess what would be the best scenario? Is that when you go to like a point system, maybe, or I guess this is your model, so I'm gonna let you.
Yeah. No, so I would let each conference have autonomy to decide, how they would break a tie of 2 teams or 3 teams, whatever the case may be. But for us, we would look first at head-to-head. So, for example, Northwest and UCO this year, even though they were co-champions, UCO beat Northwest head-to-head. So our policy in the MIAA would probably be that UCO would get the automatic qualifier because of that head-to-head decision. Even though they would be co-champions, UCO would be RAQ because of that head-to-head. If they tied head-to-head, then you would go through the formula we use for seeding in our postseason. And if they tied, we'd go down and see how they fared against the team in the second slot. And if they tied against that team, we go down to the third place team. How did you do against the third place team? So each conference, Chris, would be responsible for figuring out what type of system they would use to break a tie in the regular season to determine the AQ.
There you go. All right. I was just thinking about that halfway through. I was like, oh no, what if we have ties? But
yeah,
we got that taken care of. Another part of this too, and I was curious about this. I saw a couple other people too. We saw in football, MIAA school moved to a different region. Does that really happen much in basketball? Or is that harder to do in basketball? Or I guess what's the synopsis there when it comes to moving teams out of region?
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that is something that they're just testing at football. Okay. I'm not sure that is a policy that the division has yet adopted for men's and women's basketball in an effort to try to minimize charter aircraft or flights
Right.
During the regional tournament. But I certainly would be a supporter. I liked it. I liked the way it worked out in football. I thought it made a whole lot of sense to send Nebraska Kearney into the West region with matchups against the Colorado schools. That was a closer proximity for them than traveling into Arkansas or some of the other locations. So I think it would work in basketball, and it's something that I certainly would support.
Do you think the conferences in each region would ever change? Like, do you think we'd move away from Northern Sun and the MIAA together, with the Massey Ratings saying that they're two of the best in the country? Now, I don't know if the coaches want that because you want to play the best of the best, but do you see that kind of also maybe changing too along the way?
Yeah, it has changed before. I think at one point the MIAA may have been in a region with the Rocky Mountain Conference and the Lone Star schools in Texas. And that may have been about a decade ago. So occasionally there are regional realignments based on membership changes, whether there may be a conference merger that happens or a new conference that starts that causes some things to shake up. But yeah, the regional maps, they are we've been using them for a few years, but they're not set in stone, and they can be changed and modified. And it's something that the NCAA Division II Championships Committee looks at periodically, and certainly something that the NCAA staff in Indianapolis monitors.
I'll quit with the if then maybe so hypotheticals for you. We'll go back to the facts of what we've got. We've got women's side, half the teams in the region come from the MIAA. Men's side, you have 3 of the 8 coming from the MIAA. Just what does that say about the basketball level that the MIAA is having, that the women's side dominates the region? Like you said, there could be an all MIAA semifinals and you get to an all MIAA championship if everything goes the right way in the quarterfinals. Men's side of things, you could still see something kind of along those lines line up too, with 3 of the 8 coming out of the MIAA too.
Well, I think it just talks to the strength of this conference, Chris. And we could have had the same conversation in football, where we got 3 of the 7 in the region, in the super region, were from the MIAA. I can't remember if we had 4 or 5 in volleyball. When those regional selections came out. So, it just speaks to the strength of this conference. And, it's hard to win a national championship. It's hard at any level to win a championship. You need a couple of things to break your way. You need a little bit of luck. But, I think when you look at just from the beginning of the year until where we're at right now, MIAA men's and women's basketball teams are proving that they continue to be the best in the country. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And, one of them I hear a lot, and one that I firmly believe in, Chris, is the quality of our coaches. And we talked about this at Media Day back in October. We've got 4 or 5 coaches on both men's and women's basketball that have won national championships.
Yep.
And there aren't any conferences that can say that. The MIAA is unique with that type of record and list of accomplishments among our coaches. And that allows our teams, because of that leadership, to know how to play in close games, to know how to play late in the season, to know how to play in front of a hostile crowd, to know how to play on a neutral court with electric environment like our teams played this weekend at Municipal Auditorium. So, at crunch time, when it counts, we have coaches in both men's and women's basketball that have been there before, and they know what to do. And before we get off of this topic, just about bragging about the conference, I'll switch sports, but we're going into a national championship this weekend in St. Louis in wrestling, where Nebraska Kearney's ranked #1 in the country. Central Oklahoma is ranked #2 in the country. And take you to another sport, indoor track and field at Pittsburgh State is hosting the national championship. Pittsburgh State, their men's team is going in ranked #1 in the country as they get ready to host that national championship. We have about 3 or 4 teams on the women's side ranked in the top 15. So it's it doesn't matter the sport. When you and I get together, we could talk about the strength of the MIAA and what our schools are doing at a national level.
And that kind of throws me to a question completely out of left field. But when you look at the success of the MIAA, you look at the communities they're in. They're not big metropolitan areas. Kearney, Nebraska, Maryville, Hayes, Kansas. I'm just trying to find the ones that are kind of out in the middle of nowhere type of things. What draws do you think so many student athletes and coaches to these communities that aren't in your big cities, in your big, East Coast, West Coast, wherever it may be? What is the allure, you think, to the MIAA that gets such high quality student athletes and coaches all the same?
Well, the first is the community itself. I think student athletes want to go to places and play where they know that they're going to be playing in front of a big crowd. And as we've talked before, the MIAA has led the nation in attendance in football, men's basketball, women's basketball for it's going on 15 or 16 years. So student athletes know that, where can I go play that people are going to care about what I do and how I do it. And so that's one. 2 is facilities. Chris, you rattled off a few of our schools, but go down the list, go to every campus, and you're going to see student athletes will see some of the nicest facilities in the country that they'll have an opportunity to train in, compete in, and spend a lot of time in, whether it's studying or lifting or talking about nutrition or whatever as it relates to their student athlete experience. And then the final thing is just what we talked about. When you're a prospective student athlete and you're able to have Coach Ballard or Coach McCollum or Coach Slifer from Central Missouri, or to go down the list of all of our coaches to come into your living room and talk to you about coming to a school that will compete for a national title, and know that you're going to go to a school that has a great reputation as a top-notch, comprehensive regional university. You're going to get a great education, and that those are important things to a young person and their mom and dad when they're thinking about a college choice.
I'll get you out here on this comment. Washburn as a 7 seed is very, I'm biased saying this, is a very scary perspective on the men's side of things for Minnesota Duluth. Now, I haven't seen Minnesota Duluth, but Washburn being a 7 seed, that's quite the draw for the first round for Minnesota Duluth. On the women's side of things, you have Missouri Western and Nebraska Kearney, both 7 and 6 seeds. That's saying something with the talent level that those 3 have. Lower seeds, but also can make some noise along the way. And that just, I guess, again, kind of proves the point of what the MIAA is too.
Yeah, I think you just pointed out probably the 2 most dangerous 7 seeds in all of college basketball postseason this year, any division. I guess my advice for those other schools would be that make sure you bring your A game.
There it is. All right.
Because I know on the women's side, Western, and I know on the men's side, Washburn, they won't play like a typical seed. Those are two programs and schools that believe they have what it takes to make a deep run in March in both of these brackets. So it's going to be fun. This is what March is all about. This is what, this is why we fought so hard last year to get our student athletes back on the court. We fought so hard this year to make sure MIAA schools would play every single basketball game that was scheduled. I love this time of year. There's nothing like it.
Absolutely. MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy, thank you as always for the time, and looking forward to a great weekend of college basketball. And hopefully we go even further than that in the next 2 weeks and more basketball too.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Chris. Thank you.
Take care.